Hello, everybody. This is Dr. Dan Cardalicchio. Want to welcome you to another segment of Destination Health Podcast, finding function in a dysfunctional world. I almost forgot what I was going to say there for a second. I'm very excited about today's conversation because I have Janet Bloodworth with me today. She's an IFBB Pro, and we're going to be talking about those that are over 21, working out, getting into bodybuilding, keeping in shape, and so forth and so on. So I'm very excited about this conversation. Janet, how are you today? What is going on?
Hi. First of all, thank you for having me. I'm very honored and I feel privileged that you chose me out of all the Instagram accounts that you could have been looking at.
There you go. My social media company's always looking for interesting individuals to interview. So you were there. You were top on the list, Janet. So it's all good.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I feel very special. Thank you.
It's all good. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
I know we're good. I already get my workouts done in the morning, so that's done.
So you're ready. So you've already worked out. I worked out this morning too. You know,
I'm an early bird.
I'm an early bird too. I got up early this morning and I was pumping some iron. My dog, I was at the house today. My dog was with me. So he came into the garage. It's kind of chilly though here in the Northeast. I'm with you. I want to move to Florida but for those of you who don't know, Janet is an IFBB Pro since July of 2019, earned her pro card in the Masters Nationals. I love that. 2019 at the Pittsburgh Pro. She's a certified personal trainer and she is a nutritionist, and we are ready to rock and roll. So Janet, tell me, you know, when we were talking, we've spoken a bunch of times over the last several weeks, and you're 55 years old, right? Correct?
Correct.
All right. So tell me, what was that moment that you said, okay, I want to be a bodybuilder and I want to go into the IFBB? What was that thought process at one point in time? Because people just don't wake up when they're in their 50s and decide to do something like this. Tell us about that.
Well, let me do a major reverse. Back in my 20s, I wanted to get into bodybuilding. And it was my late 20s. And I was very involved, very active in the gym. I also was fitness model. And I also worked for WCW. So I had a lot going on. And
so you worked for the WCW. Wow, that's exciting.
I did. I was a ring girl. I was a Diamond Doll, and I worked with Diamond Dallas Page, Jammin' Jimmy Garvin, and Michael P. Hayes. We were the Freebirds.
Really? Wow.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes. And I trained at the main event in Marietta off of Windy Hill, which was owned by Lex Luger and Sting. And I had a personal trainer. His name was Mark. And we were, you know, training me. And I said, finally, I want to compete. And so that came to a ceasing halt because I was getting ready also to audition for the Nitro Girls. And I had a terrible car accident. So everything came to a ceasing halt.
Everything stopped at that point. What happened with the car accident?
My mother always said, don't turn your back on your drink in a bar. And I made that mistake. I was roofied. So, and I woke up in Grady Memorial Hospital. So I'm lucky to be here. So soon after that, I met my son's father. And so that, you know, getting married, having a baby, all that.
So that put that on the back burner. Yeah. So that put that on the back burner too, because you're not going when you're pregnant. That's for sure.
No. So fast forward, going on that. I've always been in the gym. I've always been an athlete. I'm a former swimmer. Had state titles here in Georgia, and I'm from Warner Robins, Georgia originally, but I live in Atlanta now. And so, but anyway, fast forward, I go through the years.
Mm-hmm.
As a hairstylist, I did hair for 17 years. And then my husband now, who retired me 5 years ago from doing hair. he got tired of me complaining, and my son was getting ready to graduate high school and everything. So
Mm-hmm.
fast forward that. He wanted me to help get involved in his business, which is Great Clips for Hair. He's a
Mm-hmm.
franchisee.
Mm-hmm.
He has salons here in Atlanta,
Mm-hmm.
salons in North Carolina, and we're out of New York, and we have one in New Jersey.
Whereabouts in New Jersey?
Allendale.
Oh, that's
We have
southwest of where I live. I'm along the
yes.
coast. You look out my window and you see like Atlantic Ocean and things of that nature. So
Yeah.
so tell me, what was it like to be a Freebird and being in the WCW? How did you get involved in that, Janet? What was that time that you said, okay?
Okay. I lived a crazy life.
Interesting life, right?
Interesting life. Well, back then I was Hooters girl.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I worked at Hooters Cumberland, which
Mm-hmm.
is one of the biggest stores in the Atlanta area.
Mm-hmm.
And I went and traveled and opened a lot of stores.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they that particular store had a lot of the athletes come in. WCW athletes came in, the
Mm-hmm.
Falcons came in, the Braves came in,
Right.
the Hawks came in. I mean, it was very centrally located, and they all just came in there, and they're, the ones that did come in there were great. They ordered food, they had a few drinks, they tipped well. It was just a fun atmosphere way back when. So back then I had this flaming red hair, and and the Dallas was in there, and he's like, he could call me Big Red, and so that name stuck. And he asked me if I wanted to have anything to do with being a ring girl, and I said, "What does it pay?"
Of course, you're not leaving one job for the other, right? Sure.
What does it pay? And he said, "Well, it's $500 every time you go in the ring." I said, "Sold. I'm in."
I could go in 2 to 3 times in a night, 5 times in a night. I'm ready to go, right? Wow.
It was fun. I traveled. I traveled to Alabama, Mississippi, Tennessee, North Carolina, South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
Oh shoot, Kansas. Pretty much all over. And I remember, Steve Austin. I remember when he got his start.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when Kevin Nash got his
Mm-hmm.
start. Those two are big time movie stars now.
Sure.
And yeah, and I think quite a few of the others are too. I met so many of them, and some of them are still around, and some of them aren't. I'm actually still friends with Dan Spivey, who was
Mm-hmm.
Dangerous Dan Spivey.
Yeah, sure.
Him and his, yeah. So,
That's exciting,
yeah.
because in my day, right, with wrestling, it was Bruno Sammartino. Of course, being Italian American, we all love Bruno Sammartino. Gorilla Monsoon was big. Freddie Blassie, classy Freddie Blassie. Chief J Strongbone. All of those guys were, the Big Cat, Ernie Ladd, right? Those were the ones in the 60s and 70s. Then all of a sudden it kind of took off, right? Wrestling. Yeah. And when Vince McMahon took over, George the Animal Steel was another favorite of mine. We just love watching them. And then all of a sudden it just kind of took off, and Hulk Hogan came in, and the people that you were mentioned, Kevin Nash, Diamond Dallas Page, and so forth. Who was your favorite wrestler?
Oh, yeah.
Who was your favorite wrestler, and why?
Well, actually, Ric Flair lives in my neighborhood. I'm not saying he was my favorite wrestler, but he actually lives in my neighborhood now.
Right.
Woo!
Yeah, right.
My favorite wrestler back then, oh shoot. I would have to say Ron Simmons, because he's from my hometown.
Right.
I'd have to say Ron Simmons because remembered me being my hometown girl because he's from Warner Robins too. So,
Wow,
and he was very sweet and always nice. But I had faith. I mean, Diamond, of course, Dallas and Big Daddy Dink and all of them. That's just, there was a lot there, and there were some that I wasn't so fond of.
We won't get into that.
My favorite wrestler now is Dan Spivey because we're such good friends.
All right, so we're not going to get into that. You can tell me a little bit when we're off the air. And so then you're going to go for the Nitro Girls, which is incredible. All right, so we're going to call you Big Red from here on in. So Big Red.
Well, I'm actually brunette now with red
big
highlights.
brunette. All right, so there you go. So
red highlights.
So now you're in your 50s. Now you're in your 50s, and you're like, okay, what was that moment that you decided, let's go back on stage. Let's start working out again. Let's start doing this because, I deal with a lot of patients that come in, and whether they're athletic from days gone by, right? Or if they're, or they've never worked out before, we always recommend resistance training to build that muscle mass. You're building that muscle mass, you decrease the percent body fat, you're a better fat burning machine, and it's just a healthier lifestyle. What was that thing that you said, you know what, I'm going back on stage, I'm going back into the gym, and I'm serious now about doing this? What was that moment in time?
It was back in August of 17. And we live near Lake Lanier, and my best friend, her and her now ex-husband, had a houseboat, and we were on that houseboat pretty much every weekend the summer of 17. And one morning I got up on the houseboat and I didn't feel great, and I felt like, okay, something's not right. And my first thought was, maybe I should take some aspirin. Nobody had any aspirin. I said, somebody got BC powder or something. Somebody gave me some BC powder. I literally felt like getting really, really super hot. And I didn't know if that was a sign of a stroke or a heart attack or anything like that, but I knew something wasn't right. And so when we came home, I got on the scale, I started crying, and I looked in the mirror and I said, that's it. And so we thought we were 20 years old back in 17, and we could party like rock stars on the weekends. And it took a toll, basically what happened. And I had a friend tell me, she's like, you need to get into bodybuilding. And I started laughing, and she goes, I dare you. And I don't like to be dared. And I said, okay. So that friend, her name is Casey DeLong, and she was in the Olympia this past year. I have to mention her because she was in the Olympia in wellness, one of the first Olympians to go to wellness, and she's already qualified for this upcoming year. So kudos to Casey, and she's also a master's. So
you got to love the masters, because you know why?
I gotta love the masters.
You know what? When I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think this is important, because you know what? My son just looks at me, and he has no idea what I did athletically in my day. He hears it from his grandmother, my mother. My father had passed away, and so when he was young, so he hears this and he looks at me and he goes, no. And I look at him and I say, you watch, old guys, old people rule. We have a little bit something different than what you have, and you're going to see that
we're
now.
Seasoned.
We're seasoned, but we also were brought up in a different generation. And when we decided to do something, there's a certain intensity that we have when we do things, because the kids today, in my very humble opinion, being a father and you're a mom, right? They don't have that. And we're going to talk about your son in a little bit, because you had shared some stuff about him, baseball player and so forth. So you decided, that's it. I'm going in. I'm going to do the Masters division. And what did you do from there?
Well, it wasn't even that. It's that I did. I contacted she's my former coach. She was a friend. She is an IFBB Pro women's bodybuilder, and her name's Mary Ray Kane. And I contacted her and I said, would you take me on as your student, or your client? And she said, sure. Because Mary is known for her way of her meal preps for people. The way that she does her meal prep, it worked for me for that time being. And we went into this, and she held me accountable every day. And so I did a contest, which was her contest in Columbus, Georgia, back in April of 18. And I did figure and I did physique. And the feedback from the judges was, your conditioning was off the chart, but you need to work on your posing. You're at that time, I was considered too big for figure, but not big enough for physique. So at that moment, I decided to ditch the heels. And I said, forget figure, I'll grow.
Right.
And so Mary's like, you need to go ahead and do an NPC show. And that was 2 weeks later after her show, which was an amateur show, which NPC is amateur too, but it's sanctioned.
Right.
And so I did my first NPC show in Columbia, South Carolina. And I won overall not novice for women's physique.
How old were you at that time, Janet?
I'm 55 now. That was 52.
52. I love this. I love this. This is all inspiring, because you know what? If you can get up on the stage at the age of 52, right? And for everybody who's listening today, if Janet can go through what she went through, she wasn't feeling good about herself. She was partying. You have no self-respect for yourself, right? You have no self-esteem. So,
and also I had hired, like I said, I had hired Mary for like coaching and meal prep and everything, but I had also hired Ed Bowen, who was my trainer at Gold's Gym here in Lawrenceville. And he and I are still friends. And sometimes I'll hire him again for a few months and just, just to keep a different type of a routine going.
Right.
Because I have a new coach now, which I hired last year because, and I know I'm probably sort of kind of all over the board here, but Mary was wonderful and everything. But after I went another year, and she's like, I want you to get your pro card. And we did it. We did it. And Ed was training me in the gym. She was doing all the other coaching.
She was doing the other stuff.
And Corey Mack was doing my posing. And so I went into Pittsburgh not expecting a thing. And it paid for me to be tall and older. So there we go again. It paid for me to be tall and older.
It worked out well for you being older. That's great.
Yeah. And being tall, because I'm taller than majority of the women that's in this field. I'm 5'7".
Yeah, you're 5'7". So going back to August of 2017, I mean, your self-esteem was shot, self-respect was shot. You were just partying.
Yes.
Was there anything going on in your life at that time, or you're just having a good time?
We were just having a good time, and got off the focus of our health. And so it got real for me December 4th of 17, where I made that commitment that I'm going to be very strict, and I'm going to follow the rules, and I'm going to be held accountable.
You have the day down. You got the day down, Janet. Exactly.
Yes, I do. And April 14th was my first time on stage.
Of 2018.
Of 2018.
Wow. So that was your first time on stage. So
yes.
So what do you love about bodybuilding? What does it do for you?
You know how some people, they say a certain high they get off on? Like some people say it could be drugs and alcohol.
Right.
Some people could say a runner, they get that runner's high.
Right.
It's not that I got that high in the gym. It was high watching my body transform. I couldn't believe it.
You couldn't believe it.
I couldn't believe it.
And you were
Couldn't
always
believe it.
strong. You're always strong when you were growing up. I mean,
Oh, yeah, I was always an athlete.
you're
I
always
was
an
always an
athlete.
athlete.
What sports did you do growing up?
My main sport, I was a swimmer. I swam from the age of 6 until I was 16.
Hmm.
And I played softball, I played basketball,
Hmm.
I ran track,
Hmm.
I lifted weights.
Hmm.
So
Right,
I was
sure.
pretty
You did
much
that
all
all.
around.
You were lifting weights during your training times for all of those sports, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I love that. And then you decided to go on stage. Now we were talking about children, right? And your son
Yes,
played baseball, right?
he
He
did.
played in college, right? So, you gave him that certain intensity to do something like that. So did he kind of like follow in your footsteps? I mean, he's not going on stage, but saying, "Hey, listen, here's my goal. This is what I'm going to do, and this is how I'm going to do it, and nobody's going to stop me." Did he have that same attitude, and did you give him that?
He had that attitude, and he is a mini me, only the male version. And I told him he could have he could have been somebody.
Hmm.
He was compared to Greg Maddox out at
Hmm.
the baseball ranch in Houston, Texas.
Hmm.
Back in, I want to say, possibly it was maybe 2013, 2014, somewhere around that time.
Hmm.
And it was 2013. And he was phenomenal off speed pitcher.
Hmm.
And where he went to school and little league and all that. And I'm just going to say, and if people get pissed at me, I don't care. There's a lot of politics in it. And I hate it
You
that
can
there's a
you
lot
can
of,
you can you can say that. You can say that. My son plays hockey, and my son plays at a very
mhm,
high level, Janet, and he's a tier one
my son did.
triple A player. So I get it. I get but I
Mhm.
always tell him,
It blows my mind
right.
how so many athletes, good kids, get overlooked because of helicopter parents
Yep.
going, and it pisses me off.
I'm gonna
But I'll
pour
tell you
some
this.
water in my cup here as I
Okay.
sit there and I go, So anyway,
I'll tell you this. I hope every coach out there, I mean it, I hope every coach out there watches the Kurt Warner story. I watched that movie on my way to Fort Lauderdale 2 weeks
mhm,
ago. I've been in Florida for the past 2 weeks, and I'll tell you what, I watched that movie on the way down, and that's a story. I cried, and I was
mhm.
like, that man made it without anybody doing a damn thing for him. So
I always tell my
I'm just,
son, I always tell my son
mm,
one thing, just keep working hard. Be coachable. Listen to what the coach has
mm,
to say. Go to an organization that wants you. We're at that organization, and listen to the coach. They have your best interest. If you find that coach that has the best interest in your heart, at their heart and your heart, I mean, that's good. And we have that. So you need to,
yeah.
take care of what you can take care of. There's always
Kyle had a great,
politics.
yeah. Kyle had a great pitching coach
Mhm.
over at Veterans. He graduated from Veterans. I pulled him from Houston County High School and
Mhm.
took him over to Veterans. I literally picked up and moved. And
I understand.
so my son could have a fair chance. And they welcomed him with open arms because my son was known as a pitcher.
Mhm.
They knew it, and they were like, "Heck yeah, we got Kyle." So, but yeah, he it got to the point, and then when he finally reached college, he got tired of it.
Mhm.
He was the type of kid that he says, "Mom, if there's someone better than me and they deserve to be the starter, I'll own that." He goes,
Mhm.
"But if I'm the better pitcher and someone starts before me, I got a
Mhm.
problem with that."
Mhm.
And that's what happened. And he handed the coach the ball in college and walked off the field and he said, "I'm done."
Mhm.
And I said, "Before you completely are done, make sure don't have any regrets like your mother did when I quit swimming."
Right. So tell me, what happened with swimming with you?
My parents shoved it down my throat.
Mhm.
And as I got older, and
Mhm.
I'm 16, and my hair was a mess back then. And then, you know, chlorine and blonde hair doesn't mix well.
Mm-hmm.
And I started getting interested in boys.
Mm-hmm.
And it took a lot. It took away. I mean, I had no social life. My summers were committed to, you know, being in the water at 6 a.m. to 10 a.m., resting during the day, eating, doing weights. I went back in the water at 5 p.m. till 10 p.m. And every weekend was a swim meet.
Right. Sure.
And I qualified I had AAU qualifications. I had 1984 Olympic qualifications. I had it. I had what it took. And I just told him, I said, don't make the regrets that I did. Don't have them. So,
did you get burnt out that your parents were just like, so?
I did.
Yeah. You just got burnt out. What would you have liked them to do differently? Because this is an important topic. And for all of our parents that are listening today, this is an extremely important topic to discuss. What in hindsight, what would you have done differently, or have your parents done differently back then?
I think my mom pushed me because she probably went through a similar situation over in Germany. Because that's probably where I got my athleticism from. I think I said that right.
You did.
The genetics.
Right.
But my father, if I missed first by a hair, that ain't good enough.
And so there was a lot of pressure on you.
Military. I'm a military brat. So it just, and it was, that ain't good enough. You know, they just pushed me. They're like, you know, you need to do this. You know, just kept pushing me. Basically, I think they also wanted to keep me out of trouble. But
well, you got interested in boys, you can always get in trouble with that, right? So
yeah, and so with my son, I tried to keep that in mind, not to push him, but I did push him, and I don't think I was as rough as my parents were, but I just, it killed me. And I mean, I was just like, just make sure. He's like, this is my choice. I said, yes, it's your choice. I said, it's not my choice.
Yeah.
But I always pushed him to be the best. I always did. And he did. He had some good coaches. He had some really rotten ones that
you always come across that in sports.
Yeah.
You know, I find
the one that was at Houston County High School was the worst. That's why I moved him. That man had no business.
So I find this an interesting conversation because you're athletic, and you got burnt out, and you know, I'm striking a balance with my son right now, Janet, where he's a pretty good player, and he has some coaches that say he can play some. I was talking with a retired NHL player yesterday. He said he could play some, you know, but I want him to be a 14-year-old. I want him to be a 14-year-old. So hanging out with his buddies, going to the movies, he's talking to whatever girl or whatever it is. He's got a little girlfriend, you know, but I also want him to look at it and say, you know, I am pretty good and I want to train. And I, I think I've instilled into him the desire and the want to find something that he loves, like hockey. I never played hockey before. I played football, baseball. So I think I've struck a balance where, you know, he's off the ice right now. The season just ended, just a little bit on the ice. He's got tryouts next week. We're not worried about the tryouts. And then he's going to take a little time off because he's playing baseball right now too, you know, because you got to do different. One of my favorite, right? But the thing is that
Braves.
There you go. Well, I grew up as a Mets fan, then I became a Yankees fan. I'm kind of both right now. I don't know. I've rooted for the Braves in different World Series that they were in. You know, Chipper Jones and all of them. Anyway.
Oh, yeah, so, Chipper's great.
Yeah, so I struck that balance with him. Do you wish that your parents struck that balance with you just a little bit more?
Yes. And I think Yes. I can only say yes. What I can say is the balance that I had with my son, I did push him, but when I saw the passion start to leave,
Mhm.
that's when I knew I had to back off.
You had to back off.
As long as as long as as long as your child wants it more than you do,
Mhm.
then that's the answer. If
That's the
they
key.
don't have that passion and they don't have the heart, they could have all the talent in the world. My son had all the talent in the world, but he
Mhm.
lost that passion.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, you know what? I say to my son, you better not lose the passion because I'm spending a lot of money right now.
that's how
So
I was like. I spent a lot of money.
so I said, you better not because I'm spending a lot of money. But you know what? If he's not on the ice, he says, boy, I can't wait till I get back on the ice. I can't wait till I do this. And he's now into bodybuilding somewhat,
Oh
and
wow.
so he's starting to work out. He's 14. He can start moving some of the iron right now at this age, right?
My
So
son's
I
into
will
oh man.
I will tell you, Janet, and if he's listening in, he's gonna get really mad at me. But I will tell you that I walked into the basement last week, and in front of the mirror, he was doing a pose down. He was he was going for it. He was going for it, and he was just smiling. He had no idea I was there, and then he looked at me and he attacked me. He's like, "What are you doing here?" He jumped on me and he started wrestling with me, and I'm like, "Man, you're strong. The old man's stronger, but you're strong."
Good for
So
him.
so he was he was in front of the mirror and he was doing the poses, and it was funny to see him do that. I guess we got a budding bodybuilder too that's up and coming, because there's a sports performance lab at the organization that he's at. He loves to go 2 to 3 times a week, especially in the off season. Takes his mind off of the ice. He's like this, and he's like this. He's like this, and so forth. It's funny. I said you have, no matter what sport you do, you have to be an athlete. Bodybuilding, conditioning, running. All of that is part of that genre that
Hockey
you
will pay
need.
you more.
What's that?
Hockey will pay you more.
That's right. 100%. So
unless you're Miss Olympia or Mr. Olympia.
there you go. Well, you know what? Maybe you and I will be at the IFBB show together, and I'll be on stage. You can laugh at me. I won't laugh at you, but you can clearly laugh at me, and I'll be okay with it. So
Yeah.
it won't be so bad. So it'll be all good.
Well, is your whole family into like working out and everything? Because mine is. My son works out with me sometimes. He'll work out with my
Yes,
husband sometimes.
my whole family was athletic. My one cousin Anthony was drafted by the Philadelphia Phillies when he was 16 years old, but that was in the late 60s, early 70s. It was a different era, and you didn't know what that meant back then. I remember my uncle throwing the scout out and said, "No, he's got to finish high school and college." Coming from an immigrant family, athletics and academics were important, but the academics were really, really important because that was your gateway to the American dream, if you will. So my cousins, they played football, ran track, basketball. I played football, basketball, baseball. So we all come from a very athletic family who went to a D1 school, who played for a D1 school, who went to a D3 school, but everybody made some noise at some point in time. My
Excuse me.
one cousin Lewis, he had played baseball, and he was making some noise. He went down to Florida and play. So we all made noise. My father, even though there's that immigrant experience, he did learn how to play baseball. He learned how to play baseball very well. And it wasn't the Atlanta Braves when he was trying out. It was the Boston Braves back in those days.
Oh
So
yeah.
right. So he was there at some training camps and so forth. I love athletics. Do you love athletics? I mean, I
I
can,
do.
right. I can just give me a sport, and if I'm interested in it, right, Janet, you just go.
Yeah, and I'm still training hard. I've talked to my coach, who is Trey Hodge, and I
Mhm.
spoke to my posing coach, who is Janine Lankowski. and Trey's up in Greenville, South Carolina, and Janine's down in Tampa, Florida. And I told both of them, as of right now, I don't want to compete this year. I can do the diet, I can do the physical exercise.
Why aren't you
I can do the
competing this
training.
year? Why aren't you competing this year?
I mentally can't wrap my head around it this year.
Why?
We got a lot going on. Sort of was diagnosed with a little heart condition, which we're monitoring with. I have cardiologist. Actually, I have more than one cardiologist. I have one up here in Atlanta, and I have one down in Jacksonville, Florida. And it's not severe. It's moderate. I have mitral valve regurgitation. Not prolapse, regurgitation.
Okay.
Where the flap, it's clasps. It's supposed to, after the blood leaves the heart, it's supposed to stop. The clasp is supposed to stop it. But sometimes my clasp will open back up and the blood will go back into the heart.
Goes back in, right, sure.
And then I'll end up with little spikes of my blood pressure goes. And I've never had any heart problems. I've never had any blood pressure problems. There's no family history on either side. And so how this came about, we don't know. All I know is I had a tetanus shot back in September of last year on the 17th, and I haven't been right since. So we're still training. We're still going through all the motions. I'm going to have some oral surgery coming up soon. And I was going to do Masters Pro in Pittsburgh in July, but to me, with all that going on, it's like, that's not the competition I should be doing.
Right.
If I were to compete, I would probably do Savannah Pro September 10th in Savannah. And so we're just taking it day by day. I check in every week. I still practice my posing every day. I contact Janine and Trey once a week. Like I said, I'm still going through all the motions and everything. And the other thing is last year I was told my legs aren't big enough. You need quads. I have great hamstrings and I have great glutes. I just don't have the quads. And so
this gives you a little time to work on your quads.
Well, the other thing too is, I know some of my girlfriends that took last year off because they wanted to grow and they wanted to be able to come back better and prove that they are better than they were in 2020 to show the judges, you take what the judges give you and you take that information and you work on it.
Right.
I have a great back. My shoulders probably need to get bigger. The thing is, I'm 55. It's hard to build muscle. It's not hard to.
It's harder.
It's not hard to create muscle. It's hard to get it bigger. And women's physique has taken on a whole new avenue. I mean, that all the divisions have. It's bigger. Everyone's bigger. Everybody's leaner.
Right. It's different. It's different from the 2000s when there was that, again, that genre of athletes.
It's not Corey Everson anymore.
Correct.
It's not Rachel McLeish. It's not them anymore. It is. You are so lean when you're on that stage. You look like an anatomy chart.
Right. Sure.
But you have to, you have to have that symmetry. And right now I have broad shoulders. I have a great back. I have a small waist. I have great glutes. I don't have the legs. And it's hard for me being 5'7". And so with someone that I found out today that they're coming back with the Masters in 2023 at the Olympia, that's when I was like, okay, maybe we'll take this whole year off and grow my legs as much as I can. Right. Because it is harder to build muscle at my age.
Oh, I understand. I understand.
And I'm
So,
competing against women that's done this for years.
right. And you've been doing this now for the last 3 to 4 years, even though you have this very
Yeah,
athletic background. So, that's always
correct.
good. So, we're almost done, believe it or not. See how fast it goes?
That went fast.
I told you, once we start and once we get rolling, it goes very fast. And I find that you've had a very interesting journey. And thank you for
Mhm.
your personal share regarding
Oh, you're
your
welcome.
heart condition. And
Mhm.
as I said to you weeks and weeks and weeks ago, we like to motivate, we like to educate, we like to inspire. And even though you have this, something tells me that you are going to meet this head on, just like you've met everything else in your life, and you're going to make it work for you.
Oh, yeah, I'm a fighter, I'm a survivor.
Yeah. So
I've
you're going to get
gone through
out
so
there.
much.
Yeah. So there, you're going to get out there and you're going to rock and roll, and we'll see you in 2023 at a show at the very least. Okay. Maybe
Of
a little bit
course.
later,
Of
maybe a little bit later in the year. So, you know, so Janet, thank you very much for coming on today.
Can I say one more thing?
You
Hey
can
to my
s-
friends at Old School Bodybuilding Shirt Company. I had to advertise for 'em.
That's okay. It's all good. We are all about the advertisement here, and we're all about the motivating, educating, and inspiring. In addition to, so you're a certified personal trainer, and you're a nutritionist. How can people find you if they want to? If they want to, there you go. Certified personal trainer, ISSA, certified nutritionist, same organization. Where can people find you
Yeah,
if they want to? If they want to hire you on, so that you can train them, give
they
them some nutritional advice and so forth.
they can okay, I still have my IG account and what the it wasn't taken down.
No,
They
for
can
everybody
find
who's
me.
listening in, I got something frantically the other night from Janet on Instagram. They're closing my account down. And I looked at it and I said, they're not closing your account down. You got a potential individual that wants to take over your account. I said,
This is me. I don't know if you can see that.
there you go. I'll make sure it's in the Instagram notes. I mean, the Instagram notes. I'll make sure it's in the show notes, your Instagram page. Okay. Yeah, we
Yes.
could see that. So it's IFBB Pro Janet Bloodworth. So we'll make sure that that's in the show notes. So listen, we recommend Janet. I mean, she's a fighter, she's a survivor, she rock and rolls. She was a Freebird
Yeah, my
WCW girl.
Gmail's on there too.
Your
My
Gmail's on
Gmail's
there.
on
So there
there.
you go. We're going to put all of that on there. So, Janet, thank you very much for being on today. It's been a very interesting conversation. We have more to talk about. We're going to have you back on again soon. See where
I
you
would
are
love
and
to.
see the progression and see how those
I hope
quads are
I
doing.
Yeah, I hope I inspired people today that are around my age because, when I do run into people and they're like, well, I'm 50. I'm like, honey, I'm 55. They're like, what? I'm like, yeah, I'm 55 years
Yeah,
old. I'm going to
I
be
mean,
56.
you're in great shape. You're looking good. You're feeling good. You ought to be in a Hollywood type of a thing. Yeah, look at that. Wow. I'm not going to show you my bicep just yet.
Hey,
The next the next podcast we do, I'll show you my bicep. We can have a little pose down. My shoulders are my best attributes, so we'll figure that out at another time.
okay. Okay.
But it is, and for all of the listeners here, we like to motivate, educate, and inspire. So when Janet and I first started to talk, and as my listeners know, I have a lot of individuals on that are friends of mine that are athletes. Janet and I met, about 6 weeks ago, and we became fast friends, and we were just talking, and I said, hey, listen, come on to the podcast. I think that it would be interesting to hear your story. And no matter what your age is, you can do something. I mean, you may not run the Boston Marathon in a minute 45 or an hour and 45, but you can get out there at any age and you can go to the gym, you can weight lift, you can run, you can swim. There's something. What are you interested in doing? So Janet is 55 and I'm 60. And I've said it before. I don't know if it's going to be this year, but I have a friend of mine that's training me, and I'm working out a lot. So let's see where this goes right now. So I'm 60. And so I'm going to be doing something. I may pop on stage one day. Maybe I'm not going next to Janet because she's going to beat me, but I will. I may be somewhere. I don't know yet where that's going to take me, but I am committed. And you can be in your 60s and your 50s. Doesn't mean anything anymore. You know, I always say this, Janet. I'm not at my home office, but over my right shoulder in my home office is my dad. A picture of my dad and my mom when they were 60 years old. They looked 110 back then, right? We don't look 60. Our attitude is not 60, 55. You know, you can do something with your life no matter what it is. And if you're not athletic, do you like to paint? Do you like to play the violin? Do you want to pick up the guitar? You want to play the drums? You want to paint? Because not everybody has to be a professional athlete, because if that's not your thing, I get it. But you can still contribute and serve humankind. You can still contribute to society, and you can still inspire others to a higher level. So when Janet and I were discussing the podcast, that's what we wanted to do. So Janet, you are an inspiration, just to let you know. So thank you very much for that.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. I want to thank everybody for being here today. Again, you know, please share this with your family, friends, neighbors, coworkers. Get inspired. Get out and do something that you want to do in your life. You could be 70, 75, 80, 85, 90, no matter what it is. I know somebody who's in their 90s, 93, and they're going for their 3rd degree black belt in Taekwondo. And they're 93. They're modifying everything, but you know what? This guy's out there, Janet, rocking and rolling it. And I have a feeling you and I will be in our 90s still doing stuff and still rocking and rolling, because I'm not ready. I'm not ready just yet. We're going to be there. So Janet, thank you very much for being here today. Awesome conversation.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Live your best life, and we'll see you the next time. Take care.